So, it seems like I've become a partner in an illegal casino operation. And as we were about to leave, Luigi paused, turned back to the casino owner, then told him, "Lucia, you know, the girl who owes you $500,000. She's the daughter of Don Pescara. So you better forget about her debt." Back in 1993, we had no mobile phones. We had what we called back then beepers, or pagers. It was this device that we attached most of the time to our belts. The beeper would get a signal and it would be showing a number. You will get a message. And within the organization we knew which codes meant what. And most of the time, once you get a signal on your beeper, you're supposed to find a public phone and contact someone, depending on the code, within the next 2 minutes. Why we used beepers? Well, it was safe, especially they make calls from public telephones. It was way harder for the FBI to track us or spy on our calls. The next day at around 3 a.m. I went to my business, or the business I became partner at. I found my business partner, the Irish guy. His name was Nolan. He was at the bar, helping the bartender clean around. I said hello and asked if he had an office. He said yes, and I told him, "Let's go to your office then." On the way to the office, I asked the waitress to send us a whiskey bottle and 2 glasses. Once we got to the office, I told Nolan I wanted to look at the books. Nolan had an illegal casino. His legal business there was a restaurant with a bar. But he started with a blackjack table and added some slot machines, then a poker table, until half of the area was for gambling. And he downsized his kitchen staff, then turned the place into a full illegal casino instead. I asked him about the books, only because I thought that was the right move to do. I want to know my business and what it is making. I thought it would be an easy task at first. Open the books and read the numbers, money in, money out, but I couldn't understand a thing from what I was seeing. Nolan's office was right next to the bar, with one of those one-way mirrors or glasses, where you can see everything outside but no one can see you. He was overlooking the whole restaurant, or let us call it the casino. Nolan seemed annoyed by me asking for the books, but he knew he couldn't do a thing about it. After all, for him, it's the Mafia who decided I should be here, and the Mafia owned the city. Nolan thought I would be an angel partner at first, that he would have to give me something like $5,000 a month, and I would let him deal with his business. We did not spend a long time in the office when we saw the door of the casino open in a violent way. It was clear someone should have kicked it. At that moment, the casino was almost empty. It was past 3 a.m. Most people had left. It was maybe 1 or 2 people left, and the staff. Through the door walked a guy in a leather jacket. I asked Nolan, "Do you know who this guy is?" And he said he was a police officer, and he was there to collect the money Nolan agreed to pay the police every day, so they would leave him alone and let him do what he does illegally. He assured me that this was the only possible way we could keep doing business. I asked him how much we are paying them, and he said that we pay them $200 every day, and it's this guy coming to collect it every time. The cop sat by the bar and was offered a beer. I told Nolan to follow me, and I wanted to meet this officer. I asked Nolan on the way there where the $200 were, and he said that he leaves $200 every day at the bar for this officer to collect. We go to the bar and I asked the police officer how he was doing, and next to his beer was the envelope with the $200 of our hard-earned money. I picked the envelope, gave it to Nolan and told him to go put it back in the safe. Then I looked at the police officer and told him, "You drink your beer and leave, and the next time you'll come here, it will be for spending money. You're not coming here anymore to collect anything." The officer looked at me and smiled, and his smile brought up some very old feelings in me, feelings of rage and hate. I felt that he didn't respect me. I know I was 18 back then, but I am now a Mafia member, and I deserve respect. That smile brought up the same feeling I had the day I was disrespected by the bartender some months ago, but I tried to remain calm. He asked me who I was. I told him my name is Johnny Borsa. As soon as he heard my name, he smiled again. He thought I was bluffing, because after all, it was clear I was not Italian. But that second smile was even meaner than the first one. I took out my gun and shot him in the head twice. After the 2 shots, everyone around us ran away. The bartender and a couple of waitresses hid behind the bar. Nolan was extremely shocked. There was blood everywhere. Some blood ended up on me and Nolan's face. The look on Nolan's face, it was clear he did not see this before. He was not part of any organization or anything. He was just an Irish man who opened a restaurant before figuring out he could make a bit more by opening a casino and paying the cops to turn a blind eye on it. He wasn't a gangster. He was so shocked and scared. After many seconds of complete silence, he was shaking when he asked me, "What should we do now?" I looked at him, realizing what had just happened. I took a breath, then answered him, "We will go finish checking the books." I told him then to pay the employees and tell them their shift was done, as he paid them on a daily basis. We went back to his office, where I continued looking at those books trying to make sense of something, but I couldn't really understand a single thing. I didn't show that I did not understand, and he was not paying attention to me either. He was constantly looking outside the office, checking if anyone is there. He was extremely worried. I spent around 5 minutes looking at the books, but I was only acting like I was looking at them. What I was doing really is I was thinking how I could get us out of this mess I just made. I then called the right man for fixing things, Luigi. It was 4 a.m. The phone rang twice. Then I heard, "Pronto?" I told him, "Luigi, it's me, Johnny. We kinda have a situation at the casino, and I will need some people to clean a little mess." He asked me if I was alright, and he asked me who did the mess. I told him I did. He then said, "Alright, I will send you a cleaning crew." You know, in the Mafia, each one has their own specialty. Some people are hitmen, some are accountants, some are guards, chauffeurs, valets, and then we have the cleaners. It is people who do take care of crime scenes, make sure everything is clean, as if nothing ever happened. 30 minutes later, 2 short Italian men entered the casino. They were the same height, and when they came closer, I could see they were actually twins. They asked me if I was Johnny. I said yes. Then they asked me if there was any other bodies or was the one by the bar the only one. Then they started changing to their work clothes. Nolan told me he had to leave, but I told him to stay. I wanted him to see what was going to happen. You know, when I became partner in this business, I didn't do it on my own. It was Luigi who got it for me. So I wanted to prove myself to Nolan, and to myself as well. It took the twins 2 minutes to get changed and get their equipments ready. Nolan saw for the first time a human body getting cut into pieces and packed into plastic bags. They packed the whole body in bags. Then they cleaned the blood from the whole scene. They put everything in plastic bags. They cleaned the tiles on the floor, the bar, the glasses by the bar, and the machines. Then they took out an infrared light, the same as the police use in their investigations, to check if they had missed any blood stains. Everything was clean. They took their special clothing and gloves and put them with the other trash in a big plastic bag. Then they told us they were done. I looked at Nolan and asked him how much we had made that day. He said we had made $8 grand. I told him go get $4,000 and give it to the cleaners. After the cleaners had left, Nolan turned the lights off and we went outside the casino. As he was locking the door, he asked me if I wanted to buy his part of the casino. I could then own the whole operation. I liked the idea, but I didn't respond directly. I thought about it for a second, then told him, "I will see you tomorrow." When driving back home, I stopped by a public telephone. They used to have those big phone books with yellow pages everywhere. Those phone catalogs had the phone number of everyone in the city, before they started having only phone numbers to registered businesses. I looked for an accountant, but on the same page I found the number and an address of an accounting school. I cut that page from the book and took it with me. The next morning, I woke up at around 10 o'clock. I went to this accounting school. I waited for a bit in front of the school until it was lunchtime. Then a big group of students left the building. The students went in different directions in small groups. I spotted a guy walking alone. He looked like he was a good student. I walked to him and asked if he was a student and how everything was going. Then I asked him how long before he would graduate. He told me he had 6 months left. I asked him, "Oh, and then you will look for a job, right?" He said no, he had to find an internship first and then hopefully they will employ him. It was still a long process for him. I told him I could offer him a job. I offered him $4,000 a month and that he could start right away. He didn't have to finish his remaining 6 months and doesn't have to go find an internship where he would work for free. He was thrilled about the salary. $4,000 a month in 1993 is a lot of money. He was worried the job may be bigger than him, then that maybe he needs to finish studying everything they had left in that term. I told him the job was about counting. "Can you count?" He said yes. "Alright, then you will count bottles. Can you count bottles?" He said yes to that as well. "Then you're fit for the job. All I need is someone who can count bottles and then count money and make sure the numbers make sense." He was so happy. He told me he can do a lot more than just that. But I told him, "That's all I need you to do for me now." He was so happy and thrilled. Then he looked up at my clothing and the whole image started to make sense for him. He knew who were the people dressed in those fancy clothes in Chicago. The people who could offer this kind of money. The signs of worry were very clear on his face. He switched from smiling and being all happy to being extremely concerned. I told him, "I know you are a smart boy. You might be worried about the shoes, the clothes, right? But don't be. You will be working in a legitimate business, with a company name and real employees and all. So, do you still want to make those $4,000? He said, "Yes, I want." So I gave him the address and told him to meet me there at 11 p.m. I went to the casino at 10 p.m. that night. On the way, I stopped by and bought a fancy watch. I wanted to become organized in my business. Something I noticed in the Mafia business and especially in the Mafia bosses, or the capo, Italian for head of operation, is that they were very well organized. Nothing around them was messy, and most importantly, if they said you will meet at 10, you better be there when their watch shows 10. I waited for that accountant. I thought to myself, if he shows up 1 minute later than 11 p.m, I will send him back home and tell him the offer is off the table. Luckily for him, he showed up at 10:45, 15 minutes early. I told him to follow me to the office, where we met Nolan. I introduced him to Nolan and told him this will be the new boss here. Nolan wanted out of the business, so I asked him if he still wants to sell me his part. He told me he is willing to sell me his part for $400,000. I told him I could give him $200K on 4 months. $50,000 per month. He agreed and we shook hands on it. After all, he didn't really have a choice, and I think all he wanted was not to be linked to that dirty cop's murder. I gave the book to the accountant, then when Nolan left, I went out. I saw Lucia in one of those blackjack tables. When she saw me, she came to the bar. I went behind the bar and served her a drink. She was extremely thankful. I figured out from her thanking me that she had no idea that Luigi was involved with fixing her problem. She thought it was all me. When she finished her drink, she told me, "So you're a business owner now?" I told her yes, apparently, I am. She smiled, she was impressed, and she was happy for me somehow. She then wanted to invite me for dinner, to thank me for getting that problem off her shoulders. She said I know exactly the spot, and trust me, I have been a couple's daughter for enough time to know where I should go, to not be seen by anyone who knows about my father. We said we would meet the next day at the restaurant by the airport. That restaurant was really far from the city, and the Mafia had no business controlling that area. The next day I went to Capuzzo. I told him I had a dinner and wanted something less criminal and more gentle and probably romantic. He gave me a suit and a hat in clear colors, far from the dark suits I am used to seeing in the laundry services back office. I went to the restaurant. It was a French one, and despite wanting to be there, I was really cautious, knowing who she was and how fast she could get me killed if anything may not have pleased her. She was in a very good mood that night. She asked me a lot about myself, how I ended up alone in this world, and then she told me about herself. And she drank and talked a lot. The more she drank, the more she talked, and the more she talked, the more she told me about some personal things and asked me about my personal life. She was curious about me. But she was a daughter of Don Pescara, and I was the youngest Mafia member with the lowest rank as well, and this idea terrified me. She was smiling all the time. She stood up to go to the bathroom, and on her way back, she stopped by the waiter and paid our dinner. I figured out it was time to leave, so she came back up to the table, put her coat on, opened her bag and took out a hotel room key to her hotel room. She put it in my hand, smiled, and left. I was really confused. Is this a new test? I don't think so, but I was willing to take the risk. I was happy, but I was scared. And I went to that hotel room, and it was not a test. And we spent the night together. The next morning, my beeper started ringing at around 10. It was number 8. That was the number of the laundry service. I was going to call right away, but I thought the phone number of the hotel might raise some questions. So I went out and looked for a public telephone. I found one and I called the laundry service. It rang twice, then Luigi picked up. Pronto? I said, this is Johnny. And he said, yeah, right. Don Pescara called for you. He wants to see you tonight.